Recently, I was asked the question. I am at loss to understand subconscious. It is my understanding from a psychological approach that all desires which must be suppressed because society says they are wrong find their way into our subconscious. There they remain, ever seeking to escape. The Rosicrucian monographs of the neophyte degrees indicate that suggestions which one wants to materialize should be placed in the subconscious mind. Is the subconscious of psychiatry the same as the subconscious mind of the Rosicrucian teachings? If not, wherein do they differ? This is indeed a very interesting question. Conscious has been subdivided into numerous related terms by various writers and investigators in the fields of psychology, psychiatry, and philosophy. There are such terms as preconscious, unconscious, co-conscious, subconscious, and others. All those who discuss these terms are not in agreement upon them. Some schools of thought support one definition or term, and others another. Let us, for example, consider the eminent classical writer on the subject, Dr. Morton Prince. His works were authoritative in the field in the early part of the century. He became the exponent of certain theories in psychology that led to his being considered the founder of a particular school. His writings are thus considered to be classical authority, as are those of Freud, Jung, and Adler. A very learned text by Dr. Prince bears the title, The Unconscious. Suffice it to say that in this work he postulates that the subconscious has two main subdivisions. One of these he terms the unconscious, the other the co-conscious. The unconscious to Dr. Prince is a kind of physical function of the subconscious. It consists of neurograms, that is, modified neural structures, the result of organic activity. Simply stated, it is a kind of unconscious pattern which has been established by certain physical functions which are carried out in our organism without our being conscious of them. That is, without our being aware of these impulses. To use a homely analogy, it is as if certain grooves or channels were being formed, which the impulses will follow, producing functions without our having an awareness that this is being done. The co-conscious, the other aspect of the subconscious, Dr. Prince states, consists of a chain of ideas which do not enter conscious awareness. This function, as contrasted to the unconscious, is psychological. It is ideation rather than a wholly physical or mechanistic process. To state it more tersely, the co-conscious consists of a stream of ideation or ideas which combines and recombines, but which is coexistent with our conscious mental processes, except that we are not ordinarily aware of this stream of ideas. Now, brothers and sisters, simply put, this means that behind our thinking mind, our conscious thoughts, there occurs a process of other ideas. Some of these ideas of the co-conscious, the subconscious, occasionally cross the border into the realm of the conscious, and then we realize them. Psychiatry, as that of the Freudian school, is of the opinion that these co-conscious ideas, on entering the conscious mind, often assume a different character. In other words, the expression of the idea in the conscious mind is different from that which motivated it in the subconscious. It may be said in this sense that such ideas coming from the subconscious often misrepresent themselves, or at least they clothe themselves differently when they enter the conscious mind. It is also contended, and has been clinically demonstrated, that some ideas become fixed in the subconscious, of which we have no longer any conscious memory. Such ideas may become subversive, agitators in our community of conscious thoughts. They plague us behind the scenes. They disturb our conscious ideation, causing fears and anxieties, the cause of which we may not understand. There are those, too, who use the term subconscious to mean a separate or independent mind or consciousness that has been implanted within man. They conceive this to be wholly divine or supernatural in its nature, and that it is ever more or less in conflict with the conscious state of the personality. Those who take this position are identifying the subconscious with the theological and certain philosophical explanations of soul. The Rosicrucian conception is midway between these two extremes. It recognizes certain elements of both. Let it be said, however, that the Rosicrucian concept preceded by several centuries many of the modern theories of the subconscious. Of course, the word subconscious is relatively new. Early Rosicrucian philosophy used different terms to define its doctrines. To the Rosicrucian, consciousness is a stream of sensitivity, which, for its functioning, is dependent upon the physical organism, the body of man. It is not just the material substance of man, as it is ordinarily thought of, that generates consciousness. On the one hand is the vital force, and on the other, the energy of matter, which, in combining with it, brings forth life. From life, there emerges consciousness. Consciousness arises then out of the harmonious relationship of these two major forces of which man consists as a living entity. Consciousness, therefore, is not a substance. Rather, it is a function, an effect. We may use the analogy of sound. Sound is the effect of certain vibrations acting upon air. A and B, in other words, unite to produce C. In the instance of music, A is that which originates the vibrations or impulses. B is the air upon which they act, and C is the sound or effect. The Rosicrucian law of the triangle illustrates the principle of this manifestation of consciousness arising out of the unity of two other conditions. From the metaphysical point of view, Rosicrucians postulate that the vital force, that energy that combines with gross matter to produce life, carries with it an intelligence. The nature of this intelligence is held to be cosmic. By this, the Rosicrucians mean that there are certain universal patterns, governing influences, which by means of this vital force pass into all living things. These influences become mostly an unconscious direction of our organic being. They impel us in numerous ways to become the kind of being which we are. This consciousness, this sensitivity or responsivity, is not divided into separate segments as the various terms applied to it would have one believe. We may use the analogy of the visible spectrum and its gradations of colors. The colors are only wavelengths of light, which we interpret as red, blue, green, etc. Each color is part of the whole vibratory nature of which visible light consists. Because its various phenomena appear different to us, we isolate them, thinking of them as being separate. The stream of consciousness likewise has its octaves of manifestation. These we call states of consciousness, which have been given different names, the most common being the objective and subjective, or the objective, subjective, and subconscious. But behind them is the whole subliminal stream of consciousness, with its impulsions, the cosmic or universal drives of the vital force of which it consists. This subliminal stream of consciousness, since we are not aware of its numerous variations of manifestation, we group into one general, all-inclusive state, which we call subconscious. Its operations are being explored by both psychology and its offspring, psychiatry. For centuries, the mystics, and numerous religionists as well, have known other aspects of it, which they have come to term superconscious, absolute conscious, and cosmic consciousness. Undoubtedly, the stream of consciousness is like a hierarchy. That is, it is composed of steps or levels of sensitivity and responsivity. Those levels of everyday use, the objective and subjective, are its lower aspects. By that we mean that they respond to only the more gross vibrations. Their sensations are consequently of a lower order. Immediately behind them, perhaps, is that particular level of the subconscious in which lie those latent ideas implanted in childhood, or which in various ways have become resonant there. From the deeper levels of the stream arise those impulses which are in themselves without ideas. The notions which come to be associated with them actually arise in the lower octaves of our mind. In other words, ideas must have the qualities of our sense experiences. Everything we know, or that we come to realize, must, for example, have certain qualities or sensations such as dimension, color, space, time, heat, pain, pleasure, or is meaningless to us. Consequently, the cosmic impulses of the deeper levels of the subconscious must transcend, rise above the distorted ideas in the lower levels. They must come to the fore of the consciousness and associate with themselves ideas which figuratively would be like a breath of fresh air in their inspiration. This reaching into the depth, or shall we say outward into the stream of consciousness, to experience the exalted impressions and to clothe them into ideas comprehensible to us, constitutes the technique of mysticism. It is an art which requires much study and perseverance. All persons occasionally experience the superjudgment that arises from the impulses of this cosmic stream of consciousness. It may manifest to them as an exalted idea, an inspirational thought commonly called a hunch. The details of such knowledge do not exist in the cosmic, but this higher state of consciousness has, we repeat, the faculty of organizing the ideas of the lower levels of consciousness into such thoughts which may go beyond the common faculty of reason to bring forth. Dr. Prince, in explaining this function of the organization of ideas by the subconscious, says, and I quote, "The process reminds us of the printing of visible letters by the concealed works of a typewriter, or of visible letters of an electrically illuminated sign appearing and disappearing according as the concealed mechanism is worked," unquote. To conclude, fathers and sorors, the Rosicrucian concept of the subconscious mind is more inclusive than the subconscious as referred to by psychiatrists. Rather, their aspect is but one level of the whole, just as actually our objective and subjective states are likewise but part of it.